This is the Big Woods Bucks Podcast. Come explore the big woods and timber in North America with your host, Maine Master Guide and deer tracking expert Hal Blood. Listen to Hal and co-hosts Lee Libby and Joe Cruzy as they unlock the secrets of big woods whitetails. Each episode will provide valuable insights in the tried and true system Hal has used for the last 40 years to scout, locate, and hunt mature big woods bucks. Listen and laugh as the crew discusses Hal's legendary adventures and learn how to apply a lifetime's worth of lessons from the big woods to your own hunting and outdoor adventures.
Welcome to the Big Woods Bucks Podcast. I'm your host, Hal Blood, and this week we're sitting down here at Parlin Lodge again, looking out on the morning misty water with my co-host, Joe Cruzy.
Hello.
And my fill-in co-host, Lee Shands.
Hello from Good Lee.
Good Lee. Bad Lee had some lame excuse last night about 7 o'clock that he couldn't make it this morning. So
That's why he's Bad Lee.
yeah,
He's that
right.
trouble child.
Yeah. So
Irresponsible.
Good Lee stepped right up to the plate. So
I don't even know why we're surprised anymore, Hal. We're just gonna have Good Lee.
he said he's got some big important meeting with some big client or something like that, you know. Pretty quick, we ain't even going to be able to talk to him anyways. So, we're going to talk about deer hunting. Is that what we're here for?
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm good. Deer
Yeah.
hunting sounds good.
Sounds good. So, we're in the period of time when it's time to do some spring scouting. And it's actually getting a little bit late because it's greening up pretty good. But we've been spring scouting, and I've been doing my deer clinics, my annual spring deer clinics I do in May. And so I had a couple thoughts about that I wanted to talk about because it's kind of funny. When I get talking to the students that come, you know, I always have to figure out a kind of a simple way to explain things that may be complicated, you know, and just so people get it. And
Like you talk to me all the time.
yeah,
Gotta talk slower.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, you're a little bit more simple-minded than most of my students. So, yeah, you got to just explain it out to people. But anyways, what I wanted to talk about, well, a couple things, but the main thing was when I take them students in the woods, it's fun because I see. It's like the light bulb comes on. I can see the light bulb come on in their heads when they see how to find a signpost rub and, you know, the corridors or the edges where the bucks travel, you know, because most people don't understand that, you know. So the way I kind of explain it to people is if there's whatever territory that buck roams, pick a number, you know, 10 square miles, 20, whatever it is, he's only using about 10% of that whole territory that he really travels through. You know, there's not to say he doesn't get to any other part of it, but in his main travel routes through there, it's about probably, I figure, 10% of it. So I call it the 90-10 rule. If a buck is using only 10% of his territory most of the time, it's a pretty good idea. That's the 10% you want to hunt. So I say spend 90% of your time in the 10% area and 10% of your time in the 90% area, which just means get through it, you know, to get to the 10%, and you'll have a lot more success. You know, it just makes sense if you spend the majority of your time where a buck is most likely traveling, then you're going to really up your odds. And I always give an example. It's kind of funny. You know, we'll go across the hardwood ridge for a half a mile or up over it or something, and you know, you'll see some droppings scattered here and there, but there's nothing. It's all random. There's nothing really usually specific about that. And I'll say, pretty good place to sit right here, right? Look how far you can see, you know. And everybody's kind of shakes their heads, you know, yeah, they agree with that. And I'm like, but it really isn't. I says, you can see good, but the odds of a buck coming through this particular spot in the hardwoods is slim because there's too much of it to travel through. So I call that the 90% areas, you know, to get through. So Lee said you got a story about that, huh?
Well, it's going to tie right in what you just said. I was going to already mention that, but I found a spot a couple years ago. I was guiding one of my clients, but it ended up, it's where Logan shot his big buck 2 years ago, and it's where Joe and I shot our twin 9-pointers last year. I found a place that had a lot of deer sign, but the deeper I got down into, the further I should say that I got away from the road, I found a real nice pinch point. There was a bog down there, and I had put pictures on our Facebook page of a signpost on a hemlock, which you very rarely see that in Maine. They're almost always on a brown ash. But there was a signpost on this hemlock, which we saw the year before when Logan shot his buck. And it's also the week before Logan shot his buck, I was tracking a buck and it went right past this hemlock signpost. So after Logan shot his buck, I helped him get started back to the road, and then Joe and I were going to continue on hunting, and I got right on another big buck track and followed it, and again it went right past that hemlock signpost. Joe and I didn't end up getting the buck, but it just further put in my mind that, geez, this is a hot spot. So last year I went in and did some preseason scouting, and probably maybe 200 yards away from the hemlock signpost I found a brown ash signpost. And there was just a lot of concentrated sign in that area. And it's, most people know what a pinch point is, but because of the way the land was and with this bog being here, there was a natural pinch point, I should say. So last year ended up being a really good year for me. A lot of you know I finally drew a moose tag after 40 years of applying. So I finally drew a moose tag and got my bull. And then I got to hunt during the regular firearm season, which I almost never do. I usually hunt with muzzleloader, and I was looking forward to using my Woodman Arms muzzleloader. But as it turned out, I had a client from New York that wanted to hunt with me the second season, and he said, hey, if you cut me a deal and guide me for a little cheaper, he said, I don't mind if you carry a gun and hunt. He said, I don't mind if you shoot a deer. He said, I just want to see a big Maine buck. And so I thought, well, that sounded pretty good. I haven't carried my 99 in quite a while. So it was the second week, and I've always found that the second week is the best week for trying to call deer in Maine. And it's funny, I've had this conversation with Hal and some other guides. It's for whatever reason, I think the bucks, they're not really chasing does yet. They're getting ready, and sometimes a doe will come in heat towards the end of that second week, but mostly it's just before the actual rut, but it's when the bucks are responding to calls. And over the last 20 years of guiding, we've taken 3 really nice bucks the second week that I grunted in with a grunt tube, but I've never rattled in a buck with rattling horns. So I don't know how long ago it was, probably at least 10 years ago. Hal gave me it's called a pack rack. And when he gave it to me for Christmas, I thought it was kind of a joke. Some of you may have heard this story before, but it looks like a starfish on one side and a set of boobs on the other. It doesn't really look like it would amount to much, but it's a little unit. I think it's put out by Night and Hail, and that thing sounds like rattling horns, but you don't have to carry the rattling horns with you. So I can keep it right in my Big Woods Buck fanny pack. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to try to rattle in a buck. I've never rattled in a buck, so I'm going to try it.
Hey, wait a minute. Are you on Night and Hale's pro staff or something?
No, I'm not. Actually, that's just a freebie for them. I just wanted, if people want to know what really works good, it is a Night and Hail, and it works great, and it's small and compact. So anyway, getting back to the story, I set the client. I wanted, he'd never been down in there, and I wanted to make sure that he was in a good spot. So I had found a logging road that had a bunch of ground scrapes in it, and it went down to the brook. So I told him, I said, why don't you follow that logging road, and then when you get down to the brook, you can follow the brook, and I'll meet you down there somewhere on the brook for lunch. So it was a warm day. Everybody knows that second week in Maine last year was warm. So by the time I got down to the brook, I decided that, hey, this looks like a good place to park. I was already heated up, so I got my rattle pack out and started rattling right near this pinch point. And I don't think I rattled once for like a minute or two, and then I waited 10 minutes and did it again. And I think it was the third time that I rattled. I caught a glimpse of something coming through. And going back to what Hal just said about it's not always the place that you can see the best, because one side of the brook was open hardwoods, and I'm sure that a lot of people would have set up on that, ridge line where you could see for 200 yards down through that open hardwood, and that's where they would have rattled. But over the years, I've learned that those big bucks, unless they're chasing a doe, they're more likely to be down in the thicker stuff. So I was down on the other side of the brook in the hemlocks, where I might have been able to see 30 or 40 yards down through a couple of funnels, but basically it was thick and you couldn't see much. But I caught a glimpse of this buck coming through, and I'd see him and then I wouldn't see him, and he passed that signpost that was on that hemlock, and he got into some thick stuff, and I didn't see him for a while. But then I saw his rack come out behind a really big hemlock, and I thought, geez, it looks like he's got some headgear, and I thought no more than I get a chance to hunt. And my first buck rattling in, I thought if he steps forward and I see his front shoulder, I'm going to let him have one. So I waited quite a while, and the buck, I think it was a 160-pound buck, so it was probably only a 2.5-year-old buck. But even at that age, he was pretty cautious. But after 5 minutes or so, he stepped forward enough, and I let him have one. And so it ended up, that was my first rattling buck. And the things that you can learn from it is find a pinch point. Like Hal was just saying, there's 90% of the sign is in 10% of the woods. And the other thing that you can learn from it is don't set yourself up in a place just because you can see a long ways and you can see a lot. That doesn't mean the buck's going to come through there. He's more than likely, he's going to stay down where it's thicker and he's got some cover, because that's just how whitetails are.
What did you see down there? You're saying it's a pinch point. What are you seeing that's pinching them down in that spot? Just because I know the spot a little bit, and I'm curious what you're referring to is what's pinching them.
There's a bog, and I think I checked it with my GPS last year. That bog is probably a quarter of a mile to a half a mile long, and it comes right up. It's hemlocks on one side and open hardwoods on the other. And the deer, they travel around that bog, and as soon as they can get around the bog and cross the brook, they were crossing right there at the head of that bog. And I mean, there was just a ton of tracks and a ton of, deer scat there. And it's right where, on one side of the brook, you got that hemlock signpost that's maybe 30 yards from the brook. And then maybe 100 yards up from where the bog starts, there's a brown ash signpost there. So those two signposts aren't more than 100 yards apart probably. And it just, you could tell from all the tracks and all the deer scat that's where they were.
It's definitely heavily traveled. I was in thinking about the spot myself and how you describe it. I'm was just curious what aside from the signposts and everything else, because the first time I went down in that spot, I agree. I mean, it's one of those pieces of woods that you get into.
Yeah.
Whether it's a pinch point or not, you feel like, man, they got to be right here. And it's probably like going along, because I'm definitely guilty of coming into a nice area and visually just thinking, wow, this looks like a spot a buck would be, and spend so much time focusing on a spot that maybe he's not there.
Yeah. Well, that's what most people do, but usually them bucks are going to travel. I call it the transition zone. It's either up here, it's either up where the hardwood hits the green up high on the ridges of mountains, or down low where it transitions into the green, before you get down in the bottoms of brooks or whatever. And then you got transitions on the side of ridges. When you got, if you got wet runs coming off the side of a ridge, a lot of times that'll be green growth or something. But that seems to be where they travel. I remember back when I first started guiding hunters up here and stuff, I would find these great spots, these same pinch places, corridors, signposts, and I'd put a guy and tell him to sit on that stump or sit on that log or something, and invariably I'd come back and they would be 50 yards away where they could see out in the hardwoods. And I'm like, what are you doing over here? And they'd go, well, I looked around, I could see better here. And I'm like, yeah, but the deer don't travel there. They travel back there where I put you. You see what I mean? It's just,
Yep.
I think, I don't know if it's human nature to want to see further, but that's why the bucks get big, and that's where you're going to kill them, is if you're in them places they're traveling. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's a waste of time in the hardwoods. I'm just saying your odds are so much lower. And I always put things into odds, always have, when I make a decision in the woods, whether it's tracking or just getting around, I go here or there or left or right or up or down, because odds tells me that's the best choice. And, when you go along in your hunting career and you get enough experiences, you'll see that. You'll say, well, half the time this works, doing this, and some things that only work 10% of the time or whatever. So you just pick your odds and play that,
Deer, they're creatures of habit, just like we are. And getting back to that open hardwoods, the only times I've ever seen really big bucks, going right through the middle of open hardwoods or a cut, was if they're after a doe. Once they're chasing does, if the doe goes through the middle of the hardwoods, they'll have their nose right up her tail and they'll do it. And then the other time is like in muzzleloader season, or maybe even Thanksgiving week, if you've got tons of snow and they're on their travel corridor, if they're going to wherever their yard is and they're on their migration trail. I can remember I had this discussion with a guy from over in Eustis years ago, and his family were big hunters. And back when they cut all those big cuts between Eustis and Jackman back in the 80s and 90s, him and his family, they were shooting massive bucks right out in these cuts. But it's because it was either late Thanksgiving week or muzzleloader week, and those bucks were on their migration trail. And normally they wouldn't go through a wide open spot like that, but it was just, that was their migration trail and that's where they were going to go. And so they did it, but that's not normal behavior.
Yeah, usually when they do too. I mean, I've, tracked hundreds of bucks across the hardwood ridge, but it's not like any one particular spot. It's just they were getting somewhere and they just picked a place to go. It wouldn't be anything consistent. Sometimes I'll say, I wonder why this buck went there, because it wouldn't be a normal place. But when they're out searching for does or traveling, they're just going to go wherever they shoot out of the green growth. They pick a spot and they head down through the hardwoods, and they might not go that way again for 10 more times in the area, you see. So keep yourself in the 10%. And a lot of it too is, I can see in the woods, when you're there and you look around, it's not just, a lot of it's the cover. That's a major factor, but a lot of it's the terrain. It's deer in general travel the path of least resistance. I mean, there's places they've traveled for 100 years just because the lay of the land, the topography and stuff. Whether it's going through a saddle in a ridge, or the way they come down off the ridge, it's gentler slope. But that's just really how they've always chose to travel. I mean, that goes out the window when they're chasing around and stuff like that. But normally, the path of least resistance, and even in the thick stuff, I remember most of it is gone by now. But back in the 80s and 90s, we had what was left from that budworm stuff. When you had all those dead fir trees that were falling over, and the little fir trees coming up through them, and it was just a mess. You couldn't even. Sometimes you'd have to get up on the blowdowns and walk down the logs and step on the next log to get through it. Well, the deer avoided that. They're not going to crawl through that stuff.
Was that evident back then when we lost all those softwoods? I mean, you could
oh
notice
yeah,
in the woods.
Yeah, for sure. It was, and it was a progression because they died first. And a lot of those, the spruce budworm actually killed mostly the fir. Not very many spruce died because what was always left over was great big spruce trees left. So it was still pretty good cover because you had the spruce, but the fir trees died, and then however many years it took to rot enough to fall over, whether it was 10 years. But for sure in the 90s, I remember a lot of that was really some real bad places, and then eventually it rots right to the ground, and then you don't even notice it. And again, and I've seen places now, the firs would be a carpet of firs through there that would be, head high or whatever. You go to them same places now and it's all 30 feet tall or 40 feet tall, and it's thick. And then a lot of them got eaten up by the moose, so it's opened up again and something. But that's just the progression of the woods,
Yeah, Mother Nature gave the deer a bunch of cover this past winter with all the wind.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
noticed shed hunting this spring. Man, is there some blowdowns.
Yeah.
Mostly big spruce.
Yeah.
Is what I noticed. A lot of it.
A lot of feed on that with that old man's beard. And I know because this winter was easy anyways, but, that's how sometimes you get in one of them knobs of spruce that a lot of that blows down, and a big buck will stay there all winter. That's all the feed he needs for the winter, and there's still cover in there, and they'll spend the winter in one spot, Seen it a lot of times.
I can remember back in the 90s, one of the very few times that I've been nervous in the Maine woods. I wasn't lost, but I had checked my compass. It was towards the end of the day. I'd been tracking a buck up above Moosehead there, and so I knew the direction I had to go to get back to my truck, and I got in one of them spots like you were talking, and I mean, you just put your head down and blow through the small firs, and then you'd come to a tangled mess, and you'd be climbing up, and it was getting dark. And like I said, I knew where I was, and I knew where my truck was, but it was some miserable, and I was like 2 hours after dark getting out of there, and it was miserable.
Yeah, I remember one time me and Featherstone was hunting together during muzzleloader season, and I had cut a track, and I'd follow it across this mountain. It was old, frozen up from the night, and I'd come to 2 or 3 beds already, and I'm like, I'm getting this thing freshened up, and I'm just hammering along on it still, and I heard a noise, and I look, and I see this buck jump up off to my left, about 40 yards, and I could see I thought it was a 10, it ended up being a 9. I could see it had 5 on one side, but anyways, I thought it was the buck I was on, and it turned out not to be, and anyways, I called Mike over, and Mike ended up shooting it. He called his Mr. Smith buck. But by the time he'd hit it in the front leg, and we chased it down all afternoon, the time he killed that buck I think it was at least 2:30. And we had several miles to get out of there, and we had to go over a mountain, and there was no trail, no logging road, no nothing to walk on. I mean, we had to bust through the woods. So we just basically beat feet in the straightest line we could. And it was kind of a new hunting area for the most part. And we got into one of them budworm places, and I didn't think we'd ever get out of it. It was getting dark in there, when that spruce gets dark. And, I mean, we had to go over and under these blowdowns. And meanwhile, we're pushing through the firs that were 6 inches apart.
This is dragging a deer?
No, we left the deer because we knew we had to get it out a different way. But just to get back out of the woods in the dark, and we popped out on the road, and it was just about dark. And that was the time that Stan was with us. I don't know if I ever told that story when Stan was with us too, and he had struck off. We all struck off in different directions. I ended up calling Mike on the radio because the year before that I had shot my king buck, and he'd get off his track to come help me get it out. So anyways, I asked him, I said, you want to take that track or you want to circle? And he goes, I'll take the track. I said, I figured you'd say that. But anyway, so Stan had struck off, and we were up near the border, the Canadian border, and he had followed a buck a long way, and he never really kept track of his time, and he was a long way away. But so he said, I guess he figured he'd walk the border cut back, which was logical, right? So he's coming back, and it's getting late, and he comes to this real steep part. There's a lot of those like cliffs almost on the border because they built it on the height of the land between Maine and Quebec. But anyways, he gets to this real steep pitch there, and it pitched down, and it was a little shelf, and it pitched again, and the whole thing was probably 50 feet down. Well, instead of going in the woods on the edge and like hanging onto a tree and getting down, and at the time Stan must have been pushing 70 at the time. He started down over that steep pitch, and he slipped. There was about 6 inches of snow, and he slipped and fell down over it. And they used to thin them border cuts out with brush saws. You know, they had the guys with the brush saws. And there was all of them fir stubs about a foot high. They're like punji sticks. And he landed on one on his rib, and it knocked the wind out of him. He hit that, and he bounced onto the shelf, pitched over that, and went the other 50 feet down, slid down over that one. And it's almost dark, and he'd lost his glasses and his gun. Jeez. So now he can't barely see without his glasses, and he's feeling around in the snow, and he found his glasses. They had fell off right at that last bump but he couldn't see his gun anywhere. And he called on the radio. Me and Mike had just got back to the truck, and Stan calls, and he goes, I got a problem, he goes. And he goes, I fell down, and he goes, I ain't doing too good. And I'm like, holy smokes. I said, Stan, first thing I told him, I said, is get your GPS out and give me a bearing on the truck, because I knew he'd punch that in, you know, so I would know the back azimuth to get to him. So he did that, and he said, I think I can make it out all right. And I said, well, you come on that compass reading. I said, straight. And I said, if anything happens, we'll come in. He made it. It was pitch black when he got out. And so anyways, he ended up, we went back to camp, and his ribs were like black and blue. He ended up breaking 2 or 3 ribs. And the next morning, we went right out of camp, and we were in remote camp, and we went out, and he went to the hospital, and me and Mike went back in to get his buck, and I went in the next spring and found his gun, his muzzleloader.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he'd lost it when he hit the punjies on the first pitch, and he must have, like, when he hit it, he just, like, threw his hands up, and his gun went. And
what kind of shape was it in?
It was a little bit rusty in a couple of the places. I can't remember what parts on it had, like, rusted because they were a different metal or they weren't blued, but it was one of them buckwhackers. You remember them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I really, after I got it, I said, I don't know if it was worth coming back in here for that thing.
I can remember Mike's clients used to tease him because Mike had a buckwhacker.
Oh, yeah.
They used to tease him because I guess I never had one, but I guess they didn't shoot the best.
Oh,
I never even heard of that.
Oh, yeah, a guy over in Vermont
Buckwhacker
invented that or come up with that sometime and claimed they was the best shooting muzzleloader. And Mike had got one, and we went down. I had just got my Omega. I remember that. Mike had just got that. We went down to the range to check them on Sunday before the muzzleloader hunt. And at 50 yards, he could barely keep it in 10 inches at 50. I mean, they would be, one would be left, one would be high. They just couldn't shoot a group. And that was kind of funny. Yeah.
It's a good thing Mike's a good hunter. He usually sneaks right up on them, and he shoots them under 50. It's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were talking about how he lost all that stuff, and it reminded me, I'm always coming up with new ways to use my Onyx app, I guess, because I was shed hunting, and I had a radio with me because I had Braden was with me, and I kind of felt down like this, and my radio was gone. It was it was a VHF, and it was my good one. I'm like, geez, I've lost some things in the woods over the years. I've lost GPSs and everything else.
Hey, you lost your InReach one year.
Yep. Well, that was right here in the parking lot.
Did you get it back?
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. Someone found it and took it. But anyway, I'm like, I got to find that radio, So when I shed hunt, I use my app when I grid so I can see where I've been. I don't miss any spots. So I backtracked for a mile, found my radio.
No kidding.
Never would have found it if it wouldn't have been for it. But
hey, Hal here. I want to talk a little bit about our partnership with OnX Hunt. I've been using it for a while now, and if anybody knows me, they know I'm not a very techie person, but the OnX app is it's a real time saver. I remember the days when we poured over topo maps everywhere we was going to go and stuff, and I don't do that quite as much anymore. Where it's really helped me is scouting, whether it's deer scouting, a moose, or even turkey hunting in the spring, which I do. It really helps out. I don't have to spend as much time running around the truck burning up the gas. I'm just basically using my OnX. Got it on my phone. Don't even carry a GPS anymore. So I just download the areas where I'm going to be hunting, whether it's up north moose hunting, and I use it mostly on the satellite imagery. I like to see the the cuts and the clearings and the turkey hunting, the hidden fields and stuff. But everybody's using it now, from the game wardens to land surveyors, and just a great tool. And with our partnership with OnX, if you use a code BWB, you're going to receive 20% off on your first premium or elite memberships. And you just go to onxmaps.com/hunt. You'll be glad you did. Good luck on the trail.
Hi everyone, Big Woods team member Mark Sheeran here. Many of you know that I have a passion for helping people solve their addictions permanently. As a matter of fact, me and my team have spent the last 31 years helping more than 20,000 people move on from their addictions. So know this, if you or someone you love want to move on from an addiction for good, and you don't want to be stuck in a rehab or 12-step meetings or endless therapies, then you might want to learn about the Freedom Model and the St. Jude Retreat. To learn more, give us a call at 888-424-2626. All calls are confidential. Here's that number again, 888-424-2626, or go to soberforever.net for more information. I really look forward to helping you end your addictions for good. Here's that number one last time, 888-424-2626. Take care.
So when he lost his gun, he had snow and everything. It was just so thick he couldn't find it.
Well, it fell in the snow.
Oh, and just buried.
Yeah, probably he didn't know. I mean, he was hurting bad. He didn't want to.
He didn't care.
He didn't give a crap about that. He needed to get out. You know?
Yeah.
So
the last time I went through a spot like that, I think it was 2 seasons ago, guiding, and we ended up on this steep section that was so thick. You end up in it. You think you're taking a good route back, and once you end up in it and you've committed so much time to it, it's like you got to keep on going.
Yeah.
But man, is it miserable. That's the fir and spruce, real thick fir and spruce on a steep slope with blowdowns. It doesn't get any worse for going through.
The last time I remember being in a piece of woods like that was Lee and Hal's excellent adventure. Remember that, Hal, coming out through that mess when we got remember my client wounded the moose, and we tracked the moose probably 2 miles before we caught back up with it. We weren't lost, but we didn't know where we were. We just kept following the moose until we caught up and finished it off. And Hal said, well, we'll split up. I'll go one way and you go the other, and we'll find the best way, because we were going to have to pack the moose out. And I can remember when I wrote that story and posted on Facebook, it was, if there was a Bigfoot, that's where he'd have been, because where I went through, it was like a friggin' jungle. Oh, it was awful down in there.
When I get into them places, if I got a client with me, I say, you know what the plan is now? They go, what is it? And I said,
get out.
To get out. We got to get out of here.
Well, you did that to, what's your client that you've guided up here the first week the last 2 years?
Oh, Roger.
Roger, you did that to him the first year. He thought he was going to get a workout.
Oh, we got down into a place. I said, that was that Wednesday. We'd got that snow the first week, but we'd been the first couple days on bare ground, hunting around. And I said, Roger, you up for a little exploring today? I said, that's a place I've been thinking about for a while. I said, I haven't been down in there and must be going on 20 years. I said, how'd you like to go down there and look around? He goes, yeah, let's do it. Well, I'd kind of forgot that in 20 years how stuff grows differently. It used to be, it had them fir patches in it and stuff, but there was a lot of good places too. Well, we got down in there, and that had grown up into nothing but spruce and fir, growing about 12 inches apart. And that's all we did was push sideways through that. I kept looking up ahead. I was trying to get through to us. I was just trying to make a big loop for the day. And once in a while, I'd see a little light up ahead, like we were getting out of it. And all it would be like an old skid road from way back with alders in it. And then it'd be solid firs again. We went through all day. But the funny part was, in sometimes we'd hit them openings and wet runs. We ended up finding, it was either 5 or 6 signposts in there that I never had found. I told them, I said, these aren't where I was seeing signposts before, because we actually never really got to where I wanted to be and couldn't recognize the spot I wanted to be. because we got so far in, I had to start turning to get out. You know what I mean? But yeah, there was, and it was the funny part was it to me it was a spot that looked like some big bucks stay there, but there weren't a sign of a doe in there anywhere because there was really no feed. I mean, in the openings, and once in a while you'd hit a boggy place or a ledge with some stuff on it, but there was no deer staying there except them bucks were around there somewhere traveling through or whatever. And it was just so remote. You could tell why they'd be there, those big bucks, and they just probably spend their time there. And once the rut starts, they come up out of there and hit the ridges where the does are and stuff. But yeah.
A little shout out to Roger. That I always tell people you can usually tell the difference between someone that's going to be a big woods hunter and someone that's not, because probably 2/3 of your clients, the first time you drag them through that, they're like, I ain't never doing that again.
Yeah.
And then you take somebody like Roger, that old saying about perseverance. Yeah, it was kind of too bad you go through it, but then there's light at the end of the tunnel, and I think he shot a buck the next day, right?
Yep. I think he got his buck the next day after that. We got some snow, and he shot that buck. Yeah. But we were doing just on bare ground. We were doing, I think, because he had one of them, what they call them, Fitbits or something, and he'd say, yeah, we did 10 miles today, or 10.4 or 9.8 or whatever. We did the first 2 days. The time we got out that day, we'd done 14 miles. And he's only a few years younger than me, so we was a geriatric.
Yeah, he does good.
Yeah.
Keeping up.
Geriatric crew there. So, yeah, then the next day, he shot his buck, so.
Perseverance.
Yeah, just keep going.
I thought you were using is it Stevens that always recommends it? run them crazy the first. No, Lee says
bad Lee. That's bad Lee. Yeah.
Wear him out the first couple days and they'll quiet down.
Yeah, that's we tease him about him being bad Lee and me being good Lee, but we're quite a lot alike in some ways.
No, not even close. He's bad. He's bad Lee.
But in some ways, yeah, I've never. I've heard some horror stories about. Yeah, well, if he don't want to do what I tell him, he's going to pay.
Yeah. Don't defend him.
Oh.
Well,
I used to have to take him in the office up the other place there.
Give him a beat down.
Oh, I'd give anything to be a fly in the wall in those discussions.
I said, Lee, you can't do that stuff to people.
All right, who's Lee guiding this year? Bad Lee. Who's bad Lee guiding this year?
Well,
he's probably off in his boat right now.
Yeah, he's going to be guiding that the fella Vince from Australia that couldn't come last year.
Oh, he's coming this year?
Well, he said to give them. They still haven't loosened up on that stuff over there because Australia had that. You couldn't come go from Australia. They didn't let nobody in. They didn't let anybody out. So he asked me. I'd emailed him to see if he was going to come this year because that's what he said last year. He said, "Can we postpone it?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "This is not your fault." So at the time, a month ago or something, when I corresponded, they didn't know yet. So he asked if I could give them to like July or something, to see if.
Probably everybody in camp this year will end up with the kangaroo flu.
Yeah, it reminded me too when you said that about. I hope you guys are going to go get your shots. The state's giving away hunting and fishing license for people to get shots.
Are you kidding?
Nope.
When you got to bribe people to get a shot, that makes you even wonder a little bit more. Yeah. I seen this morning on Fox and Friends here. They was talking about the governor of, I think it's Ohio. They're giving out $5 million to 5 people. They're going to have a drawing. Everybody that gets at least the first COVID shot now gets in for a drawing. They're going to draw one a week for 5 weeks for $1 million.
Yep.
It's bribing people. Something wrong with that picture. And I keep seeing all these commercials on TV that, now they're bragging about kids down to 12 can get them and stuff, and they got to advertise for it. And I'm like, when you got to advertise that stuff, I don't know. I still think it's everybody's own. I'm not against them. It's just anybody's own.
Yeah, it's personal business.
Yeah. Some people have different health issues, and if you think you need to get one, get one. But
bottom line is a personal decision, and they're making it. They're trying to make it something different than that. And anyway, we don't need to get off on that. Back to strategizing.
Yeah, that's right.
So
You don't need a shot to come up to Prowling Lodge to hunt deer with us.
no, you don't. But if you have one, we don't. That's fine too. Whatever.
I hope so, because
To
I
each their
got
own.
mine.
Yeah.
I've never had a flu shot. I haven't been sick since I was a little kid, but I told Hal that, after I sent the deposit there for our Alaska trip, I thought, because they change the rules every friggin' day, and I thought, geez, I'm not gonna have something screw that up. So they had it at Hannaford, and one of the girls asked me if I wanted to get it, and I was like, yeah. And it didn't do anything to me. I didn't expect it would, but
What about all those spots on your face? You got all those
yeah.
they're breaking out right now.
No.
It didn't do anything to him, but let's wait till next year. We'll review this.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like this. Like he's gonna be the Badley, and Badley's gonna be the Goodley. Now they're gonna switch personalities.
Well, Hal would tell you, I've never gotten a flu shot, and I probably never will, but when my kids were all at the house, Kelly and all 4 of my kids, it'd be 5 people living with me, and they'd all have the flu, and I wouldn't get it. And then when we started going to Ontario hunting deer, everybody in camp would have the flu and be sick, and I wouldn't get it. So I'm really blessed with a good immune system. But like I said, the reason why I got the shot was it was readily available, and I didn't want it to screw my fall up. So,
Well, hopefully they don't require that, because I'd hate for you to have to camp alone out there.
yeah, I'm not looking.
Hey, look, I think those whatever cards they have would be pretty easy to photocopy. I'm not worried about it.
People are already doing it. Yeah.
So you sent yours out, your deposit?
Yeah, I sent mine as soon as he sent it to me. I figured he'd probably appreciate that.
You didn't get the text? No, they don't. Anyway, we'll talk about it after. But I think she emailed me the other day, and mine and Mark's were the only ones they had so far. So
no, I sent mine out as soon as I got
when
it.
did you get it?
I don't know. I assume same time everybody else did. But
No,
Yeah,
don't
no,
assume that, because I just got mine a few days ago.
yeah.
oh, you just
It's
got
been
your
a
thing in the
while.
mail?
Yeah, so I'll reach them out there and
Check
and
with
check
him. But
and
I
make
sent
sure.
mine out the next day. I know I don't like
Is
to
it-
wait for deposits,
Did
so
they
I didn't
cash
make
it?
him wait. I don't know. You'd have to ask Kelly. She's my accountant.
Yeah, I'd have to do the same thing.
No, I just,
Yeah, maybe if you just find out if ask her later, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, that's why I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, I didn't get I didn't. If they sent them all at once, I didn't get it because I got back to him and he sent it, and I just put it in the mail.
I told him to
Monday,
tear
I
your
think.
check up. I said it'll be a funny joke if we all go and Hal doesn't. So,
Yeah.
but
Yep. Yeah. So let's. The other thing I wanted to talk about today was strategizing for deer hunting, and then you can relate it to hunting anything else. But like I've always said, is if you can learn to, consistently shoot bucks up here in the big woods or anywhere in the big woods, whitetail deer, everything else is going to be a little easier to hunt, because really it's a strategy, and you got to make decisions all the time, and you got to think about what the buck's doing, and try to react to that, make decisions, and that's all it is. You just keep going along, and you're making one decision after the other, whether you're on a track or you're still hunting, or maybe you're rattling or calling one in or grunting or doing something like that. It's still going to be a strategy, just like, if you're trying to turkey hunt or something, or even moose, we can relate it all to that, because you have to think about once you start interacting with an animal, you got to figure out what mood they're in, right? So like a moose, you can't make the same call all the time. If you only got one call all the time and the moose ain't responding to it, you ain't getting him, right? So you got to change things up. But it's the same thing with strategizing on how to get a buck. And I think it probably holds a little more true maybe if you're tracking, because you're making, 100 decisions every time
Constantly.
you're tracking one.
Yeah.
It's like it might be every, 2 minutes or something,
well, it's a chess game that goes with the strategizing. I mean,
that's a good way to put it.
The biggest difference between tracking and just sitting is just that. Which there's a lot of decisions to make if you're sitting, you're making beforehand, but you're not really making any decisions after, except for maybe shots or something. But tracking, you're just constantly figuring out where he went, where's he going to go next, conditions, everything you're putting together. And
Yeah.
I usually tell people the key to guiding is making educated guesses, because deer, they're individuals and they're not always going to do what you think they're going to do. But when you're tracking a buck, you hope that, 2/3 of the time, maybe, that if you tell the client, I think he's going to head in this direction, or I think he's going to do this, if you get 2 out of 3, you're doing pretty good.
I think the most important one is the first one you make, which is whether to take it or not.
Yeah.
And sometimes the hardest.
Oh, I know.
You sit there sometimes. I mean, you get those ones that are like, weighing all the conditions, how big they are, how that's your first big decision. Then once you go, it's just nonstop after that, which I think is the big allure of tracking.
A lot of times you have trouble convincing the clients. Like if I've got clients that haven't tracked before, a lot of times you find a track that's froze up some, and you say, well, that's a nice track. That's a really good one. We'll get on that. And they're like, really? That's froze up. We're going to get on that. And it's like, yeah, you can freshen that up. It's not that old. But a lot of times you have a hard time convincing them you're going to take a track that's froze up.
Yeah. A lot of times, like you said, that first one, I've made a mistake many a times is like you got a pretty decent track, but maybe it's one of them either or tracks, I call it. So you decide not to take it. You're going to go find a bigger one and go all day and never find a bigger one. Whereas in reality, if I'd got on that track, it probably would have taken me to a bigger one. So that's the first decision. I take the track or not.
Hey, Hal here. Hey, one thing I realized as I was getting older is when I was younger, I never really planned for retirement. And so my client for the last couple of years, Jerry Smith, had been talking to me about it a little bit. And I don't know when I'm going to retire, but I definitely got to get ready for it. But Jerry owns a company called the Northern Way Wealth Management, and he's got a program he calls the Northern Way Retirement GPS, and it's a way you can plan to get your finances in order and live your best life, which means time in the woods to track down some big bucks. Because, the problem is not getting enough time in the woods for most people. And, whether it's family or other hobbies or, just financial obligations, it cuts into your hunting time. So Jerry has partnered with Dave Ramsey in his Smart Vest program where he helps folks in his process. And Jerry has partnered with us at Big Woods Bucks to offer you your very own no cost or obligation and Northern Way Retirement GPS. Just call or shoot Jerry a text at 715-551-4181 and mention the promo code BWB. Jerry's going to help you get some retirement time and some more income so you can hunt some more. Good luck on the trail.
Investment advisory services through Retirement Wealth Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Northern Way Wealth Management, Retirement Wealth Advisors, and Dave Ramsey are not affiliated.
Hey guys, Joe here. Wanted to take a few minutes to talk about Lake Parlin Lodge. We're a 4-season lodge located just south of Jackman. We've got cabins, lodge rooms, mini lodge. We're a big snowmobile destination in the winter, full restaurant, bar, all the amenities that you need for your trip. Open obviously through the summer, right on the lake. Kayaks, canoes, all included with the cabin. We also do a lot of weddings, so if you're looking for a destination wedding, we can do a wedding up to 200 people. And of course, we've got our hunting season, moose season, deer season. So check us out. We're at lakeparlinlodge.com.
Hey, Hal here. Just want to take a minute to talk about the hunting club. And you can join by going right online at bigwoodsbucks.com. But anyways, I've got all my information is going in there. And it's a place where you can get together and look at my films, tips, writings, and all of that. And the best part is forums for you to communicate with, the rest of the club members, talk about big wood stuff and all of that. So anyways, $36 a year, cheaper than getting a Starbucks once a day. So join up and hope you see you on there.
Yeah, First decision is where we're going today.
Yeah.
First decision. That's a big one. And just to answer a little bit off topic, but I have seen a couple emails from guys coming for the American plan. And yes, if you're coming for the American plan, we do try to send you in the right direction. The question was, are we kind of just on our own, or
Yeah.
obviously we have our spots that we're taking the guided guys to, and we have our spots we like and everything, but there's enough room up here for everyone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We're happy to help.
I get them too, people. I've actually had a few that we're going to come up and look around this summer or something, have a little vacation and look around. I said, well, you don't need to bother looking in the woods too much, but you can kind of familiarize yourself, with the area, the road system, and, see the mountains, and maybe you can look off and say, geez, maybe I'll try that mountain or this
And I think
one.
that's a big advantage.
Yeah.
To have it. It's tough if you're coming up to an area for the first time and have never been here to just go out and.
One thing that we can touch on, though, I just happen to think, because I get it a lot. You book a client and they want you to send them back coordinates, or they want you to send them exact locations of where you're going to hunt in the fall. And I always tell them, we're going to hunt where the deer are. And I can't tell you, I'll be, a couple weeks before the season, I'll be out and I'll do some preseason scouting, but I won't be able to tell you exactly where we're going until you get here, because we're going to go where the deer are. And from year to year, that can change. If they want an exact location, they're like, well, I think we're going to go here. But when you show up, if I've changed my mind, it's not, I was trying to throw you off or anything. You can't make up your mind where you're going to go until it happens.
If I'm guiding them, I tell them you don't need to know where we're going. You don't need any coordinates.
Well, it's like sometimes you don't even know when you're eating breakfast. You're still thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
I think what it is, they want to print off a topographical map or something like that.
Yeah, they try to get familiar with the area, and I tell them don't worry about that.
I did that last year with the moose trip. I did exactly what you're saying, but it was more, I didn't have a guide out there. We were getting dropped off, so it was for that reason, for downloading my Onyx maps. But he's the same way. Even though he's just dropping us, he doesn't know where he's dropping us until
he might
get there.
Might see a big moose 2 days before.
That's right.
Decide to go there. That's really what it's about, anyways. Is you can't get too stuck on a spot. You know what I mean?
Right.
You get stuck on a place there, and you might have seen a bunch of activity there, but that's history. That doesn't mean it's going to happen again right there.
That's something else we can touch on too. That's a good pointer for people. Is I've had it happen to me over the years. I've got, I don't know how many signposts I've got marked in my GPS, but lots of them. And usually those places are going to be good year after year after year. But we had a place not maybe a half hour north of the house that I remember one year Stephen had 6 different bucks on that same signpost, and 4 of them were smokers. 4 of them were really nice bucks. But we ended up maybe the year after that or 2 years after that, they cut on the back side of that, and they cut within 200 or 300 yards of that signpost. And that next year we had a trail camera on that, and there was a few little bucks, but the big bucks stopped, except for dark. Towards the end of the season, we had a few of those big bucks after dark on it, but they weren't coming in the daytime anymore, and I think it's because they cut too close and they didn't feel secure there. But then last year, that nice buck that Stephen got with the kid from up in Jackman here, that was back off from that same signpost. So, it's probably been 5 or 6 years. Now it's grown up, and stuff, and it's changed again. But from year to year, even on a signpost and their travel routes, that can change.
I'm sitting here going, the kid from Jackman. Roger.
Yeah.
had to think back who Stephen was hunting with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had stopped hunting that place for a few years because after they cut it, you weren't seeing the sign. And like I said, we had the trail camera on there for a whole month, and it was a few small bucks, but the big bucks didn't show up until late in the season and after dark.
Yep. Worse than that is when they go in and log and they cut the signpost down.
And it ain't good for anything anyway.
It's pulp. And half the time, the size they are, they get left in the wood yard,
The only good thing is they're usually in wet areas.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they don't.
Well, that area that I'm talking about, that was another oddity. Again, 95% at least of the time in Maine, your signpost is going to be on a brown ash. But that same area that they logged, when they logged it, there was a hard maple. There was a rock maple in there that was a signpost. And, Yeah, they cut it. And I can't remember the last time I saw a signpost on a maple, but I took a picture of it. The year before they cut it, I took a picture of it and put it on Facebook. And a couple of our followers said, that they'd found them on a maple before too.
I never have. I've never found one, not a signpost, and even usually like they'll rub some maple sometimes, but I did see one this spring during the clinics there that it was a good size maple with, when they get the hard bark on them that was shined up. They didn't shine it through the bark because it's so thick, but you could see where it was wore out on one side from rubbing it. And I don't see that very often on a good sized maple tree. Usually they're just not doing it.
Some of that might be too, that when the break is like at the forks. Below the forks, the woods is different. You see more pine and oak and stuff south of it. Once you get north of the forks, the woods are different up here. It's like that area that Joe and I have been hunting not too far from my house. There's hemlock down there, but you don't see much for hemlock up here.
Mm-mm. No, if you do, it's usually a big old gnarly one or something. But, down there is probably why in southern Maine, you find signposts on hemlocks. It's more common, but southern Maine doesn't have the brown ash. But that line at the forks basically is, it might really be, I'd say it was more Bingham, because north of Bingham even, that Route 16 over there, north of that is boreal forest mostly too. And that's the difference. That's where it's not that brown ash just grows in the boreal, but it's more likely to, I think, because it's wet and it's got spruce fir mixed in and cedar and all of that stuff. But yeah. So the other thing I was going to tell you guys, I got a guy that come in and filmed during one of my clinics there, and what we're going to do with that, I guess, is he'll make up a bunch of clips of different things, in the woods, because part of it is we're in the woods teaching and stuff, but I think we'll make a series out of it to put in the hunting club that has, just tips. There'll be, I'll be explaining something, or talking about something, and so it can be like maybe a little online education for some people that aren't going to travel to come take the clinic for one reason or another. But
deer clinics all went well this year?
Oh, yeah, they're always good, It's like I said, it's a nice small group of 10, and everybody's there to... It's funny, I was thinking about that, I try to figure out why. I know why people come. They're coming to learn, but they're coming from all different... you put a group together, and the knowledge base they have is completely different maybe in all of them, you know what I mean? Some of them, I've had lots of them in the clinic that I've had other guides come take it, just because they want to learn something else. Maybe they're missing something. And I've had a lot of good deer hunters that have shot nice bucks and hunt the big woods, and they just think they're missing out, or they can, pick up a few tidbits here and there. And then I have people that come that are brand new hunters. They're brand new to it, and so they're trying to learn everything, And I had a young fella come in, one of them that was 13 years old. He was my youngest one I ever had, and he was there with his father and his grandfather. 3 generations came. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it is.
But he actually, I have a prize on each one of them, that I give him a prize for the first one to find a signpost that was rubbed, the previous winter, the previous fall, and he won the prize that week, a 13-year-old. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. Nice. But yeah, it's kind of neat that way. And I actually had a guy, I guess he'd be my furthest traveled clinic student. He drove all the way from Wisconsin by himself to take it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was because I always ask them what their story is, where they're from and why they're taking it, where they hunt and all of that. But he'd been hunting. He didn't grow up in a hunting family, but he got together with guys and stuff, and they're all either sitters or they make drives, and he didn't like doing that. just didn't like that way of hunting. And then somehow he stumbled across us, and started listening to podcasts or whatever, and getting a book and stuff. And
boy, if he gets good at tracking, it'd be fun to track some of those bucks in Wisconsin. Boy, they got some smashes out there.
It is, but you got to have the right places there. There's a lot of hunters in Wisconsin, and there's it's a lot of, it's different than here. There's a lot of the state lands and stuff, but you just got to. I think the hard part there is finding a place to go where it don't get hunted a lot,
Right.
And
it's a big state, though. He'll be able to find some spots.
Oh yeah, he's got some ideas and stuff. So he'll find it. That's it, But if they by learning, how to look for those, still out there, it's still going to be a 90-10 rule. I think it pretty much is anywhere. And so he picked up what he wanted and go from there.
Well,
what are we winding down here, Joe?
Next one's going to be during our annual get together, right?
Yep, coming up June 6th.
5th and 6th, whatever that weekend is.
Yeah, Big Woods party when we get drinking and get rowdy, right, Lee?
Everybody except Good Lee.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I took his invitation back. I told him don't bother coming.
Well, trust me, the reason why Good Lee doesn't drink is because he might turn into Bad Lee quick.
That's reason enough.
My father was Bad Lee and then some. You think Libby's bad? When my old man was drinking, you got grabbed a hold of pretty quick.
Yeah, especially at a family reunion, huh?
Yeah, we won't discuss that. Actually, some of my family listens to the podcast now, so I got another generation of guys that I haven't seen because I moved away from my hometown. But I had one of my cousins contacted us sometime last fall, and he listens to the podcast, and he was looking to pick up a 7600 carbine. So,
yeah, those are rare in hen's teeth, ain't they?
Ooh,
I might know where there's a couple if anyone's looking.
I don't know.
You can private message me.
Can you get kicked off the podcast like Facebook jail? Did they throw you in podcast
we're allowed
jail?
to discuss firearms here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I've got quite a few sitting around I've had for a while that I'm considering getting rid of. So
Joe's getting ready to become a millionaire selling 7600s.
Yeah. But they're what a market for them. And honestly, I thought that with Remington getting cranked back up and everything, it might change things, but it doesn't sound like they've got any plans for any time in the near future to
What I heard was they were the first two guns they're going to concentrate on because they can sell every one they make and they make money on them is the 870 pump shotguns and the Model 700 bolt actions.
Why don't they concentrate on those 17 that they're supposed to finish for us, and then we can...
Well, actually... I just got an email about that.
We haven't discussed
with some good news.
All right.
So I knew what the problem was, and I told you that when the new owners bought the firearms end of it, they didn't buy the plant in Huntsville. Didn't come with it. Our custom guns were being made in Huntsville. They make the parts or whatever in Ilion, and they shipped them to Huntsville, and that's where that custom shop that was making them was. So they sent people down, and they got the inventory, that came with it, but not the building. So they had to pack up everything in Huntsville and ship it to Ilion. And they did that over the winter because obviously it was, millions of gun parts and all the stuff they had there. And they shipped it up to Ilion. So somewhere I knew there was a crate with our guns in them, and they finally found them. They got opened up. I guess there's a guy that's his job there is going through the inventory from Huntsville. So anyways, they found them. He told me some were all assembled and some weren't. So I gave him the list of the numbers so they'd know. It's pretty simple because they were all numbered. And so I think we're probably going to see those in the near future here. So
that's good news.
That was good news, is right. Yeah.
I bet anyone that bought one of those is pretty happy with what they're seeing for values on those.
Well,
right now.
Chris said he called the guys and offered to refund their money because it wasn't Big Wood's fault, but he offered to refund their money, and they said, no, we'll wait and see what happens, and they're going to be glad they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone that wants their money back, I'll go ahead and give them their money back for it.
Yeah.
Full refund. But yeah, and hopefully, I mean, who knows what's going to happen. I mean, we haven't even got this run yet, but it would be nice if we could do a 308 or a 7 mil run or both.
I just read
eventually.
that. Probably a lot of people have read it, but they did an interview with, I can't think of his title. It was actually a guy that I worked with when I was at Remington. His name's Adam Ballard, and he's kind of one of the big wigs there now, I guess, so to say. But Field and Stream just did an article, an interview with him, I guess, in an article. It's in the online Field and Stream. But anyways, they asked him those questions, what's going on, what are you going to do first? And that's where the shotguns was first, and then they're going to come out with it's not just the 870. They're going to do the 1100 in the V3, and then the 700 was the obvious first thing they're going to do in the rifle. You know what I mean? There was so many models, and that's a big seller too. And they asked him specifically about the 7600s, and he said they hadn't, there wasn't anything specifically a time frame, so it's not on their radar. So it's going to be, I bet it's going to be at least 2 years before they even think about that. And then when they think about it, it ain't going to happen that quick. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because a lot of those parts were sourced out,
Well, wasn't that the rest of the story was the company that made the bolts for them burned down?
Yeah, and that machinery's gone, so they're going to, that's not a big deal. Anybody can make the machinery to make those bolts, especially nowadays with CNC machines and stuff. It's not a big deal, but they have to do it, you know what I mean? Get the schematics for them and do it. So, but it's going to be a couple years. So that's a commodity, it's getting up there, priced up like 2x4s now.
Yeah, and they are. They're expensive. They're getting a lot of money, but if it's a gun that you really want that you're going to use,
yeah,
and that's your tool,
yeah,
who cares if you're paying a premium? I mean, it's a few more bucks, but if it's what you really want and you can afford it, don't worry about the value of what it was 3 years ago, because it's not that value anymore.
It's never going to be.
No.
And if they keep giving away all this stimulus money and all this other money, your money ain't going to be worth anything anyway. You might as well have the gun.
Yeah.
Inflation's here.
I always looked at that, you know what I mean, as your deer rifle. I always looked at it as it's the one, you know what I mean? That's probably, if you get one, as long as you like it and it works for you, you're probably that's what you're going to use. I mean, I bought my first one. It was the year they come out. It was 87 or 88, that first year 7600 carbine, and that's what I still lug. So whatever that was in 87, 88, it's been over 30 years, right?
Yeah.
32, 31. Yeah, still works.
Yeah, which
a little blue one, but it still works.
I'm the same way. I think, I've got quite a few of those pumps now, and I've only ever used one.
Yeah.
As far as for hunting, and it's 30-06. It's not a fancy caliber or anything. It's just the one I like, and why I have all the others. I just I like the gun.
Yeah, I actually sold a few. There was guys that I knew that wanted some, and I got tired of opening my safe and having to move 6 guns to look at one, and half the time you clink them together. And I said, I got to get rid of some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I'll keep enough for my grandkids and my son or whatever. He's got his own, but as you get older, you start thinking the other way a little bit again, or cutting back. So I've been doing that. I sold off a few of my
I think Joel's the
ones.
one who cornered the market on them.
Yeah, Joel did, yeah.
Jeez. Did you see that collection
Did
he
you see
had?
his picture?
I did. Yeah. I just talked with Joel last night, and we were talking about it, and I told him, I said, well, maybe I finally got my first, Remington pump that I might use a lot. Hal found me one out in Wyoming. It's a 760 and 300 Savage, and it's got that old look to it. It's broke in. Some woman, it was her mule deer rifle, and that thing is just as slick as glass, but it's not loose or anything. It's just slick. Boy, it works nice, and it looks nice, and she must have took good care of it because the blue one's good. And I told Joel about it, and I told him what I paid for it. And he says, yeah. He said, I would have bought that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the same thing for my grandson. I got a 300 Savage. They only made them the first year, and I'm going to have it cut down for him to carbine length, and I'm gonna put an old junky stock on it or something to cut so I can cut it off because he's not very big, and then save the original one for when he grows into it or something. And hey, that may end up being his gun for life. I don't know.
Yep.
I'm gonna
get
that done.
Speaking of your guns, Jonah's going to bring back the one you gave him from Alaska. That's going to be mine. It's a 22, I think, that was your first gun.
Did I give him that?
Yeah.
That Marlin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just have to authenticate it for me because years from now, I'm going to, with inflation and everything. And
that might be worth something. I shot a lot of rabbits and squirrels. And
yeah, it was rusted sitting in the corner. I think he helped you move a couch or something and you gave it to him.
Yeah. You know what happened with that? It's a Marlin Model 60 semi-automatic. And I headed up to up behind the house when I was over at the other place where I fed the deer, and there was always in the spring a bunch of crows getting in it there. So I kept it outside leaning against the wood pile. It was under the deck and something, but I never thought about it with, just the moisture in the air, and it kind of got rusted up. And so
I haven't decided whether I'm going to re-blue it or leave it original. See. I have to see what kind of condition it's in.
Want me to sign the stock?
Maybe. I don't want to devalue it too much with Sharpie on the stock, but yeah, I probably won't use that one. But
so
anyway,
so anybody got to email Joe if you want to draw it on a 7600.
Yeah, I don't sell many guns, so it was a tough decision, but I'm going to let go of a couple of them.
Yeah, I got one more I was thinking about. I would let go, but they bring in pretty good money because there was only 300 of them ever made. Grice did a run of 35 Remingtons, and I got one in the box.
Nice.
So
I've got a 35 Remington, but it's not in the box. It's a little bit older, been used, but it's a nice gun.
It's probably not a 7600 carbine, though.
No, it's a 760 rifle. Yeah. But all right, we're over. So if you're on YouTube or if you're not on YouTube, you can check us out. Hit the subscribe button so we get you on there as a subscriber, and then you can click the bell on the top for all your notifications, let you know when the new podcast comes out. We did videotape an episode, and it just I don't know what happened. The editing or something never panned out.
Yeah, the guy that said he could edit it couldn't, and then now this guy that actually did the filming in the clinic and is going to edit, he said he'll figure out how to do that. So Chris has still got the footage and the audio for that one, and if we
did put it out, we put out the audio already.
Yeah,
though.
but he's going to look at it and see if he can
make it work.
We'll be able to film some of them.
And I know it's probably easy for guys that are into the video stuff. They look at it and think, well, how tough could it be? But for us, it's 3 cameras or 4 cameras we were running, then meshing that with the audio and all that. It's simple for some, but for us, it's
because it's not the audio from the cameras we're using. I mean, the audio from the cameras isn't used. It's a direct mic one. So
and there's all the cursing we have to cut out that Hal does. He's always yelling at us and screaming orders, and we cut that out so it makes him look like a decent guy. But we all know the truth.
Yeah, and all Bad Lee's political stuff we got to cut out.
Yeah, he goes on some rants. Anyway, also if you listen to us on iTunes, give us a review if you could. Always helps out. We love seeing that.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah, support our sponsors. That's what keeps us going. And until next week, good luck on the trail. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Till next time, good luck on the trail.